Welcome Luxury Home Show. My name's Cory DeFrancisco from Muskoka Living Interiors, and I'm here to show you our Brentwood Park project. This one was completed about 5 years ago. It's actually for our personal home, so my wife, 2 kids, and our new little puppy. We're located right in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles. Looking forward to showing you around. It's really supposed to be something that all works harmoniously. So right from the foyer to the media room to the kitchen. So you really end up with this kind of wing of the house that becomes its own little entertainment unit. So this could be a guest house, it could be a gym. It's joined to the house and it's really connected to the pool. Before we get into the interior of the house, let me show you around a bit of the outside. So first of all, probably most notable on the house are the textures. And this will be a theme as we go right through. There's a lot of subtle little details that we played with on here. So when we approached this, obviously we have a brick home. We use solid brick, and it was important to us that it didn't have that kind of suburban feel where it just stacked. So what we did is we used a reclaimed brick, and then we used a actual lime mix on top of it. So we over slurried it, and we purposely didn't make the brick perfect. So it was a little bit of a stretch with the guys because they wanted to do the best job possible, but we wanted to have that authentic feel to it. So you can kind of see through, there's different levels to the faces of the brick. So we purposely brought in some different kind of texturing. And then when we did the actual mortar and grouting on it, we were purposely putting it on heavy. So there wasn't that fine grout line and it gave it more of a texture. It was in between almost what would be like a full like plaster kind of application, then with a brick underlying underneath. In terms of the detailing that goes around, we all copper troughs, copper lighting. The front of the house is something that we've really worked on making sure it's actually utilized rather than, you know, simply like a driveway and a front lawn. We wanted to have something that we could actually take advantage of. So we did a small little basketball court here, a sports court. We use this all the time. It's actually connected to a new addition we did to the existing house. So this is where we really hang out and spend a lot of time. So you have basketball, and this goes right into, and we'll get into the details of the interior, but it links into this games room, casual area with a ping pong table and a media room. In terms of what we did with the driveway, in California, we have to have permeable surfaces. So these little archways right in between, these are all added as drainage. So the water comes in here, takes it back to a sump pump. And then these pebbles, we actually mixed in with the concrete. So we did the application, we mixed in with the concrete, applied it, and then we took a layer of concrete off to expose it to give it that authentic look. Really what we wanted was an authentic pea stone driveway, but pea stone, as you know, it can carry in with your shoes, it can be messy, it can kind of slide around. So this was a great compromise for us. In terms of landscape, we really leaned into the Santa Barbara kind of aesthetic. I'm from Toronto and I don't have the beauty of using olive trees and citrus and all these great California native trees. So olive trees were heavy. I love them. I can't use enough of them. And then there's a ton of citrus. This is a new lemon tree. It's actually 4 years old. It's just really starting to come out. We're here filming this one in September, so we're just kind of on the start, but there's a ton of citrus up on this top area. And then it's all done with really like a uniform wisteria type kind of hedging. So there's not a lot of variation in the shrubbery we used. It was important that it had a West Coast feel to it, but once we get into the back, you'll see that there's like some East Coast kind of symmetry that we've used in terms of some boxwood framing, etc. So there's a bit of a mix in here, but it does have a light kind of feel to it. And certainly there's a Santa Barbara aspect to it all. All right, just finished a little tour of the front of the house. Let's take a peek inside. Okay, now we've shown you the front of the house. Let's give it a little tour of the inside. We're in the foyer of the house, and this gives you really an intro into the theme that we're going to carry right out. So the goal when we built this house is really to have the furniture, the architecture, and all the textures that we use all to kind of blend harmoniously. We didn't want this to be a segmented project. And by segmented, I mean you sit and do the architecture, and that's in another silo. Then you do your furniture with an interior designer, that's in a silo, and then you design the furniture for it in a silo. Really, we wanted to construct this whole package in one unit. And that's what we did at Muskoka Living Interiors. We actually build all the furniture that you see here. That's what we do, along with milling most of the product that's in here, and that includes the walls, etc. So what you'll see here is really a study in subtle details. The goal is that you wouldn't be cognizant if you walked in the house. Certainly I'm going to point some of these things out, but really I wanted it to be a feel and not something you necessarily pick out. So when you come into this first room, we used a poplar wood that we milled with a little bit of a V-groove. This is traditionally used as a kind of coastal look. We really wanted to bring it in here as a modern, contemporary kind of aspect. In these new homes that are often perfect, as they should be, they almost get too manicured. So what we really want to do is have an authentic feel to it. So these were milled, and then what we did is we brush stroked everything. And when we brush stroked it, the paint we used, we actually added a little bit of clay to the paint. So it's not a full clay treatment, but it gives the paint a lot of depth and richness. So it's a matte finish, but if you look closely, it's not going to show in the camera. There's actually brush strokes in there. So as you go, that's going to change how the light reflects. It's going to give it a deeper tone, and it's going to give it that authentic feel. Ceilings, these are all white oak, and that's pretty true right to the house. There's no drywall exposed in the house. Everything has a texture on it. So we really approached it like a great navy suit. There's a big difference between a $10,000 suit and an $800 suit. We wanted to make sure this was really in the details and how we trim it, how we cut the suit, and how we layer it. We come from the foyer. This transitions into what would traditionally be a living room in most homes. We've stopped using living rooms in a lot of our drawings because they traditionally get stuck at the front of the house. They don't get used. It's kind of the old analogy where you have the sofas under the plastic. We wanted to make sure this was a place that actually got utilized. So this is what we actually utilize as our media room. We certainly do a lot of theater rooms for clients, and we design a lot of furniture for theater rooms. But we find that a lot of times going down to the basement, and actually it becomes a bit of a production. So we wanted this to be the spot where you go to. So obviously there's a big TV, fireplace, large comfortable sofa that's really inviting. And this works too as a family unit. It also works socially if people are coming over to watch a football game or a golf tournament. And then this leads into what we talked about when we did a little tour of the front of the house. So the ping pong table, again, we manufacture all this here at Muskoka Living. A little sitting room. And then this goes right out into this little games court. So really, this is a spot where we're gonna hang out. So you really end up with this kind of wing of the house that becomes its own little composed entertainment unit. And certainly my oldest son, who's turning 14, he's here with his buddies all the time, and it's a great place for them to hang. And for us, that's our goal. We want our boys to have their friends over all the time. We really want this to be the spot. Over here, we've done a casual bar. We'll use this. We don't host a ton of parties, but when we're having a party, this is a great place to set up. This is full white oak. We cut them in half and layered them across. Here we did a plaster application, and this really kind of goes back to how we talked about the different textures. So here you have your plaster, here you have your white oak, and then here is white oak, but it's been wire brushed and painted. So it's not going to show in the video necessarily, but in real life, you can actually see all the grains of the white oak. So traditionally, in this would be a smooth, perfectly painted cabinet detail. In this case, when you can see it, it actually has a wire brush coming through, and it's actually real white oak. And that kind of takes it right to the wall. So at first glance, and it's going to show in the camera as a light kind of taupe wall, this is actually all white oak, and we've wire brushed it. So you can actually see the grains of the wood. It's a rift cut, so it's pretty subtle. And then in terms of how we've trimmed it, it's very, very subtle. We've taken, it's just a simple 1.5 by 1.5 across, and we've taken that on the bottom and the top, and we've done a little detail right throughout. So that takes in the little details like the grates. We'll make all the grates and make sure they're all integrated within. Keeping on the whole trend of having everything work in the house as one unit, and really having the architectural significance and the interior design all work together is all the art. So all the art was actually manufactured in-house, designed by us, and really the goal was to work in as another texture and another layer. What we didn't want to do in this particular house, and it's not true for every house, but we didn't want the art to tell its own story. So we didn't want the house to wear the art. We wanted it the other way around. So the art really is a texture. It's in the background. It's not a red rose that has significance. It's really part of the house. And we actually carried that same analogy right through to the lighting. So we did the lighting for this house, and with the goal of the lighting, where a lot of people, and us too, and we do it on projects, sometimes we'll approach it really as the jewelry of the home, and we'll look at brasses and different details. In this case, we wanted the lighting to be like the art. We wanted it to be another texture. So the lights are all very simple. They're high to the ceiling in most cases, and they're all plastered in the same colorway. So we've manufactured them to be subtle. It's not something that we do in a normal course of business of making lights, but we really found that we had to get something that was simplistic and it really went away rather than highlighting the art around it. So just in the media room, just highlighting some of the pieces that we've used here. This is a great capsule collection we did in 2022. The curves are beautiful. This is actually a plaster technique that we've used over. Very hard to make. It takes a long time, but when you're actually looking at it in person, it has all the imperfections of a handmade piece. I love it. And then back to the same as this room, you can kind of see again, this is all white oak that we've done on the wall. We've done a wire brush, and then we've done this clay-based paint that really softens it. And then on the ceilings, we've done white oak as well. And again, the same theme with the art. All the art that you're going to see as we tour through the house was all manufactured by us. And it was all made to be part of the actual overall architecture and theme of the house. Okay, we're leaving the foyer and now we're coming into really what would be the main quadrant of the house. So we have layers in the house, which isn't typical. We do a lot of new construction design. In this one, sometimes when your hand is forced, it forces you into great things. So in this case, we had an existing layout that we were working with. We did a new foundation, new walls, everything. But these tiers, where if we were starting from scratch, we probably would have had one flush level. So in this case, we have 2 steps up to this layer, which takes us to your media room. And then you have a total of, I guess, 5 stairs that take you into really what's our main living area. It actually turned out to be one of the coolest things of the house. It gives you a lot of definition, and it takes the ceilings up higher in this room. So in this room, you have 13-foot ceilings, and all the windows and doors go right floor to ceiling. Again, the same theme here. It's really supposed to be something that all works harmoniously. So right from the foyer to the media room to the kitchen. So I can take you through some of the details and some of the thought process when we looked at this kitchen. Again, we wanted to make sure that it did have that authentic feel to it. We didn't want this to look manufactured. We wanted to make it look like we actually made it by hand, which we did. This is the white oak. It's been wire brushed, and then it's been painted with a clay-based application, similar to what we did on the walls. So it doesn't have a reflection, it doesn't have a shine, and when you see it in person, it really has a texture. It doesn't have that perfection that you would see in a lot of the new paint applications where things are done in a factory, and it almost gives it like a plastic kind of connotation. This drawer is full, but again, you can see we went with a really simplistic approach on our hardware. People often ask me what our design aesthetic is or what's the aesthetic of the house. And it's really, it's hard to define if it's contemporary, if it's traditional, if it's transitional. Really, we didn't focus too much on that, but we wanted to have a calming effect. That was kind of the overall macro theme. And part of that follows into how we approach the lights and how we approach the art, is we didn't want to have the hardware of the door take over from the kitchen. So that's why there's no brass, there's no hardware. It's really a clean look. And this was traditionally a contemporary, modern type application that's, we're kind of taking and we're bringing it into this, most likely be defined as a transitional application. In terms of the marble, we were really fortunate on this stone. We had a great container come in from Italy with this stuff. With stone, we find it's very hard to get the browns in it. And this one, a lot of times they have that bluish gray. So this one had a brown tone in it. Unfortunately, a lot of the pieces were small, so we had to work with them. And this particular marble is prone to a lot of little cracking. So we filled a lot, but it was worth it to get the look. This is a honed application. We actually started with it kind of leathered, and we went back to a honed. Very simple countertop detail. Over the last 25 years, we've done every OG, we've done everything possible, and we're really leaning into this. Some of the new projects we have on deck, a lot of bullnose layering, but for this particular project, it was really, really quite simple. We went with this 60-inch, and I can never say it. I think it's Liv. I don't know if it's I or Liv, but it's actually a great stove. Really, again, to lean into having something that was authentic. We do cook. I do love Wolf stoves, and I love Mealy stoves, but I just feel like these have an authentic kind of look to them. Fridge and freezer, really just wanted them to go away and be part of the overall aesthetic of the house. So we have our fridge cabinet here, and we have our freezer cabinet here. And then in the middle, we purposely split them, and in the middle, we have it for storage. But again, all the wood that we've used here is white oak, and it has a lot of detailing to it. We move in here. This is a really used part of the kitchen. It's by definition, we have a pantry, we have a fridge and a freezer built in, but it's really used if we're having people over or we're hosting, we'll really use this to stage all the food, get everything together. If we have help for the event, people can come in this way. And you know what? It has great access to the barbecue. Typically, we'll take the barbecue and the kind of cooking area and we'll put it out in a prominent spot, typically by the pool. In this case, we really wanted to, rather than making an entertainment area, we wanted to make it super functional. So it had a really quick access to the kitchen so we could use it a lot. We didn't want to have it so far away. In fact, we started with it further away and it was really a social aspect. But we decided, 2 years in, that we rather have it kind of close to here. And then that comes into our dining room. So as we go into the dining room, and I guess by definition, it's a formal dining room, but really it was anything but. We wanted to make this really super casual. So it's certainly its own room and we use this a lot. We'll typically have people over and the kids can either sit outside or in the kitchen, and then we'll have these doors open. But really, rather than making it a formal application with the big chairs at the end, we wanted to keep this so it was still comfortable and still had that kind of family aspect to it. The dining table has a beautiful little curve in it. It's subtle, but it gives us a softness to it. Rounding out this back, although it's a bigger table, it doesn't take off the same massing. Feels really good in here. We spent a lot of time on the wall application. This is a solid piece of white oak, and we've actually cut a chamfer on both sides, and then that sits on top of the baseboard. But these are all the little subtle details that we had a ton of fun with, and then in aggregate, they all come together to make the house. But just in micro, you really wouldn't get what they do. The art has all been custom made, and it fits. It's been made into the millwork, and that goes kind of back to the original where, when we're doing these wall applications, how does the art not become an afterthought where you finish the house and then you go out and think about the art? We wanted it all thought about and planned at the same time. So in all our projects, we approach all our walls as an elevation, just like you would approach the outside of a house. We do the elevation and we kind of do our drawings within there. Leaving the dining takes us back into the kitchen, a casual breakfast area. This is where we'll often have our family dinners. The kids will eat here often too if we're having friends over in the dining room. And then we have this nice little nook here. We've played with this nook in a few different ways. It works well as a great sitting area to have a cocktail before dinner. It also could work as a bar area. So we've done this as a bar area. So we've had a bar that kind of comes out here. Because of the nature of what we do, I'll try different things in the house. We've also had this as a breakfast nook. So all three work great. I happen to, for our use, we love having the chairs here. It's just what we use the best, but all three options would work really well. In terms of the great room, which is connected, this is a little larger than what would be typical. I think most new homes we would draw probably 22 by 22. This one's a little longer. So your traditional layout would be four chairs and a sofa, or two sofas and two chairs. In this case, we're able to do two settings, which worked really well. Although we have a TV here, this is really used for social, reading, kind of hanging out. So often if we have friends over, this is like where we'll go to. Great place to have a cocktail, the fireplace, nice little intimate kind of sitting area. And then here, if we have, just a little family sit down or we're reading, this is a great place to lounge. And if we have a lot of people, these chairs will get swiveled around and everyone can kind of sit in this little vicinity. But although we have the TV over the fireplace, it really, really doesn't get used that much. So you move into this area, a little serving bar. This is, again, one of those things that I experiment with as our house. So we started with this piece was actually white oak, and it came into more of a pointy kind of application. It looked great, but I wanted to try this more in a circular and then lean into the plaster. So this is plaster. We did this all by hand, and when you look at it up close, you can actually see all the detailing, the imperfect details that give it that texture. Same marbles carried out, same wire brush paint strokes is carried out right through the house. So there's nothing was sprayed, everything was actually full brush stroked. Continue into our little kind of sitting room. One of the things we mentioned before is the lighting and the art and all these things that were traditionally referred to as the jewelry of the home, something you think about after and you really go shopping in isolation and look for that great necklace. We wanted these to be considered right from the start. So the lights all purposely go away. That was the goal. So this is a similar texture that we used on the ceilings. And really, we just wanted it to be here, but not steal the show. That goes with the art as well. So this is our sitting room. This is an interesting room. And a lot of times in construction and design, some of the times when your hands are forced is when you come out with the best results. So in this case, although the house was largely torn down and rebuilt, there was an existing wall right here. This was the edge of the old house, and we did this add-on. With building permits, etc., this is as wide as we could get the house. So if you had given me a blank lot and said, draw a sitting room, I would have done the depth twice as much. So this one is 12 feet. I think typically I'd love to have 20 feet, but it's really worked out well. It's cozy, it's intimate, and we use it all the time just because it feels so great. So we have the media room at the front, and then we have the sitting room this is where we'll often, Catherine and myself will watch TV, and it's intimate, it feels good, and it's really connected to the backyard. But sometimes these smaller spaces feel a lot better than the bigger spaces. So we've seen the main room, we've seen the foyer. I'll give you a little tour of some of the offshoots of the house. So we're in the gym portion of the house. It's not a huge gym, but it's a great gym. It really has everything you need. It fits in well with the house. In terms of functionality, we looked at doing a rubber mat, but we stuck with the hardwood floor. It looks great. We end up putting mats down when we're doing sit-ups, etc. The outside is perfectly situated to do a cold plunge sauna type wellness area, so you can walk inside and outside. And then the bathroom that goes with it. Again, we followed our similar, the toilet. We followed our kind of similar MO in making everything textural and layered rather than deliberate. So in this case, the shower, all the fixtures actually in the house for the most part are from Rubinet, a great company out of Canada. Most of these are an unlacquered brass, so they're naturally discoloring as they go, so you get that real great character with it. We manufactured all the metal shower walls in our shop. This is something that came out it looks fabulous. In future projects, we probably wouldn't approach it with a metal. It probably took a little too much time. We would look at maybe doing an aluminum application or something, but they do look spectacular. Probably just too much time went into them. Now let me show you the other side. So now we're kind of walking into the laundry, mudroom, wine room. So we know we needed a wine room. We didn't need a huge one, but we were limited in space. We have about 10,000 square feet here, and we don't have a basement. It's all on 2 stories. So where we would traditionally put a wine room in the basement, we came up with this dead space that was under the stairs. And again, when we approached this, we didn't want it to be a shiny, fancy wine room. We want it to be authentic and part of the house. So we did put a window in it so you can view it, but it's subtle. Everything was manufactured in our shop, all done out of white oak, and it's a really subtle application. We kind of leaned away from the metals and the shiny applications that typically go into wine rooms. And there's nothing wrong with that, but in this case, we really wanted to fit and be harmonious with the rest of the house. That takes us into our laundry room. So we have a laundry room on the main floor and on the second floor. Again, all the cabinetry is white oak and wire brushed, and we paid attention to the actual sheen of the paint and making sure we added that clay to it to make sure it wasn't too shiny. All the doors in the house, we haven't talked about these. This is something we manufacture. It's a big part of our business. These are all solid white oak. They really we can make them to any size. In this case, these are nearly 10 feet tall. They really give it a nice, authentic feel that's grounded. A lot of times we find that the doors, again, get too perfect. And these with the white oak, and we leaned into, this isn't perfect white oak. This would be a grade A, so there's some knots in it. There's some real character to it. And we use a semi-transparent stain that's, over time, it's slowly starting to change, which looks amazing. It just gives it that patina. And then this carries right into our garage. So it's a 3-car garage. We added one more slip to it. And the garage is a spot we always spend a little more time on the design side, where it can often become an afterthought. We like to finish this space off. So we'll put down a nice floor. We'll take the detail with the cabinetry, with the ceilings, and with the wall. So rather than kind of getting to the end of the garage and just kind of giving up, we wanted to continue the whole theme right throughout. So it feels like a finished part of the house. I can't wait to show you the backyard, but first let me finish the main floor. This is our powder room, smaller space. Again, we really want to make this feel warm and inviting. The nice thing about the powder room is you really don't need a lot of storage. And I took advantage of that here in creating this flat face with the fluting. This was an absolute ton of work, getting this curvature in and actually cutting these pieces through. It's not as functional. In a typical vanity, you need to have some drawers, you need to have some shelves. In the powder room, you can get away with it. So I took advantage of it. It came out amazing. The hardware here is from Calista. It is absolutely spectacular. You can see the aging. We're getting a lot of the green in the unlacquered brass, and we just let that go. It just keeps getting better and better. And then what we did here for application, it's actually a plaster on the top, and it has it's not showing, but we have a troweled look. So it's almost like a rough concrete that you can see in real life. You just can't see it here. And then the lower portion is, it's a really heavily wire brushed white oak with these little battens. And we took the time to build the light switches into it, everything. But when you're in here, you get that soft approach. Carrying on to the office. We have 2 offices in the house. We have one upstairs and we have one downstairs. I typically use this one. We have our little area here for the computer, and then I'll usually set up the laptop on this area. Lots of storage space. I always have tons of fabrics, drawings, etc. So this is a great spot for me to kind of drop it in. And the best part, and this goes for the house, is it has access to the outside. So the whole main floor has these big sliders. Every room can be open and you can kind of go in and out as you please. And that's, as a guy from Toronto with mosquitoes and bugs, the nice thing here is you can keep the doors open and you don't necessarily need screens on it. So I really take advantage of that in all our Los Angeles, our West Coast designs. Some of the furniture in here, I guess notably the desk, this is a fun one for us. We actually took our time here on this hardware. I talked about it in some of our initial discussions, is how do we make the hardware really integrated into the piece rather than an add-on? So a brass piece that you screw on, how do we make it so it actually fits with the piece? And we came up with this. We have 2, I guess, round dowels that we've applied together, and then we've done this cool leather application on top. It looks really wonderful. And again, there's a nice subtle wire brushing to it. And we added this soft curve that you're not really gonna see, but it softens the pieces. It takes a lot of time to build it like this. But in aggregate, when you see it, you just understand the place has a softness to it. And you don't know why. You're not gonna say the softness comes from this little curve in the desk or this subtlety in the stitch on the chair, but in aggregate, it all feels really, really good. All right, so that's the main floor. Before I take you outside, let me give you a quick tour upstairs. So as we come to the upstairs, the first thing to point out, again, the typical layering and texturing, even these lights here. So these actually started, these are a Kelly Wearstler light from Visual Comfort. They were brass, unlacquered brass, and we love the light, but again, we just wanted them to go away and have that subtle little light that comes down at night, but also be an architectural detail during the day. So we actually sanded and roughed up the the brass, and then we put this like soft plaster application on it. Now it's not suitable. It works in these areas because you don't touch it, but if you have anything high touch, it's very hard to get things to adhere to the brass, but it looks really, really good and it's subtle. As you come up to the upstairs foyer, we really wanted to set the tone because from the front door or the foyer, you do get a peek up here. So we really use this as an opportunity to highlight against the poplar that was painted and come into this white oak. And again, we did this really, which looks like a simplistic detail, but we spent a lot of time on it. We started actually with a bullnose type detail, and we started with a straight edge as well. And what we ended up doing is just taking a little chamfer off the side. So a chamfer is like a little 45 degree that comes off, or a miter off each side. And when you're up close, it just gives it a little bit more depth. And we took that across. And we started with these. We looked at potentially, and I think it would have worked well too, is doing a really subtle paint that really kind of lent into the white oak, but we decided to keep it all white oak and just have that kind of wash of it. In fact, the ceiling would look great as white oak too. There's a whole bunch of ways that you could spin this, and I don't think you can mess it up in any scenario. Art, again, was really designed to fit into the place. So we built all this in the shop. And then when we came up with our interior elevations for each room, we made sure that they all fit. And it's conducive to what's happening in the house. So there's different art everywhere, but they all really pull a story together of the interior design and the architecture. So this is our primary bedroom. This is like an interesting space when we're approaching design. Often with the primary, they get really, really big. And when we get down to the furniture of it, we have a really tough time. And it's usually with the space that happens at the front of the bed. You end up with this obtuse amount of space where you end up having to almost do a sofa and chair kind of concept or another sitting room. And we've just found that they don't get used enough. And we also want to have that intimacy of a bedroom where it doesn't feel so cavernous and it feels warm and inviting. So we were purposely deliberate in keeping our size of the primary bedroom limited. And I actually try to follow this in most of our design. We don't go huge on the master, certainly where the bed is. This bedroom, although we're not big TV watchers, before bed, we use this as an opportunity to kind of test out of a lot of our different products. So this one actually has a TV in the foot of the bed. So this electronically comes up and it goes down. For us, where we don't want to see a lot of TVs, but we want to make sure they're there and they're functional if someone wants to use them, we were able to build it into this bed. This bed actually is just to point out, this is a great bed. We spend a lot of time, and this is what we do on a lot of our products, is just spending a lot of time on the little subtleties, the curvature, how the stitching comes together, how we really get that like proper little detail across the top that really makes it seem like a piece that was handmade, which it was. These were all done in our LA studio. They weren't just boxes of thin wood that was wrapped and glued together with some inexpensive fabric. So there was a lot of love and care into that. And that goes into all our pieces. This piece here is actually shearling. So this takes a lot of hides. You can see all the stitches that are in it. In some cases they get really small, but look spectacular. The coloring in this room, our palette was somewhat limited for this house. I think we have 7 different colors, but they're all in a really tight kind of spectrum of coloration. So they kind of go in that creamy beige white all the way into a browny white. And there's a mix of mostly Portola paints, and then there's a lot of Benjamin Moore here too. This is the shared ensuite. We did a neat little application where we did the bathtub in with 2 showers. Fixtures are from Rubinet out of Canada. They do a wonderful job. Unlacquered brass, so these are aging, they're getting darker, they're getting cooler, they're getting authentic. The actual vanity, I talked about in the powder how we didn't need the storage of in the lower level, but I still wanted the look here. So I've given this really nice skirt, and then I've taken away some of the storage. So form over function. I went a little heavier on the form here, so we have a smaller amount of drawers and shelves, but I think it's worth it to get this detail. Here, this little tray inset, it's not noticed perhaps, but I love it. It just brings back another little level. And then we actually took the marble right up and we framed in the mirrors. So we approach our mirrors, we usually actually while we're in kind of 80% construction area where the cladding's up that we're painting, that's when we actually put the mirrors up. We put the mirrors up and we treat them like a window. So they're actually glued on, and then we trim them in with all the architectural detail. So mirrors are something too, like lights, where we don't really want to approach them as we're finished the bathroom, now let's go to your favorite home store or online and find a mirror and put it up, where all of a sudden it's like an afterthought. We wanted the mirrors to be part of everything. And we've always really used that approach. In fact, I use a lot of mirrors in all our projects. And when you put them up, when they first go up, so if you think about this day one, this is all white oak. That's been wire brush, but these wouldn't be on it. You just have an ugly piece of white oak in its yellowy wood form, and we glue these mirrors on it. And once you glue the mirror on, it looks terrible, and it looks like you have all these mirrors. But what happens as the construction proceeds and you get to your finishing stages, the mirrors go away. And now what this mirror does here is not to look at yourself per se, but it reflects the light all around, and it makes it feel significantly bigger, and no one would walk in this room and say there's a mirror here. It just becomes another kind of unit. It doubles the size of the room. So I really do take advantage of them. This is the shared master closet. Spent a lot of time on the detailing for the doors. So these were all made in the shop. So these are actually little strips with supports, and then they kind of click in. So you get a really nice little textured detail on the island itself. Super simplistic in terms of what we did with the actual finishing. Plaster finish, wire brush, and then we used a color. Again, it was that Revere pewter, but with a little bit of white mixed into it just to soften it a little bit. There's subtle details on this in terms of recessing that kick, how we did the actual hardware, but it's all very, very subtle. Okay, so we do have a second laundry on here. So it's actually, we do live here, so this is in actual use. This is our guest bedroom. So there's a total of 5 bedrooms upstairs. This one, we do change quite a bit depending on what furniture we're bringing out and introducing. In this room, the way we've set it up, it really works with our furniture really well. So this particular room is not huge by standards, so we have a smaller bed. They're all king beds, but in terms of what we did on the bed in the master, where we actually purposely add some more massing on the side and a lot more softness, in this case, we made it a little bit more feminine and smaller, and it works really, really well. The bathroom here, it's a smaller size, and again, these smaller sizes often come out better. They feel a little bit more cozy, intimate. In terms of tile, we're very subtle on our tile. Back 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we would really approach every bathroom as its own little entity. It would be like each kid gets a room and they pick their colors, and each tile would have, every bathroom had its own tile application. We've really taken a synergistic approach to tile where it's part of the house and it kind of flows right through. So we're looking for tiles that really blend in, and we're not necessarily looking to change every bathroom just because. Although, I've spent a lot of years feeling a lot of responsibility to find a lot of different tile for every bedroom. So I've kind of leaned into the whole fact that once I find a great tile that works with everything, that we can run with it. All the bedrooms have big decks. This one actually is traditionally furnished with outdoor furniture. We have a new collection coming out, and we've just removed it, and the new one's coming in transition. So these are actually the same lights I pointed out to you coming up the stairs. So these are a brass visual comfort light from Kelly Wearstler's collection. They're an LED light, and they were originally, well, they still are brass, but you can see how dark they've gone. So they look amazing out here, and at night it's very subtle because you just get a little wash. There's an LED light in here, and it just washes down. In terms of all the exterior details out on the deck, you can kind of see that the copper, and it's starting to get in that great green. We have a lot of actually copper roof that's not going to be visible from this tour, but there's a lot of standing seam copper. So as copper transitions, it obviously gets into that green, and it looks really, really rich. So we're really starting to see that. That's coming out with the lights. In terms of the brick detail, this gives you, we talked about it on the front side, but this gives you a closer kind of approach how we came about this. This is full-size brick, and it's not perfect, okay? It's a reclaimed brick, and when we stacked it, we were really purposeful to bring some forward, some back. I was here on those days making sure we didn't get it perfect. And what really pulled it together is when we did the mortar. To me, this is the secret of not having that brand new subdivision house where it looks like they just went up really quick. Here we came over with the mortar, and then typically you're going to brush it, you're going to point it. In this case, we went over and then we just used a sponge and kept it flush, and then oftentimes I'd come back and add some more to it. So now you're almost like close to like a slurry wash or like a plaster application on the brick. So this is my 14-year-old son's bedroom. He's got his spot. This is his little apartment. Really interesting bed here. I talked about in the guest bedroom, the room was a little smaller. This room's considerably bigger. In this case, we had that quandary where when we drew the bed in, a normal king-size bed just got eaten up by this room. So in this case, although the actual king mattress is the same size, we add massing to the side. So we came out wide here, but then we tapered it back down. So it visually feels like a larger bed, and it gives that softness to the room, and it fills it. So we don't have this feeling like, what are we gonna do out front? He has a great deck out here. And this is interesting. Again, this is usually furnished with outdoor furniture, and we're just in the midst of changing up our collection. But you can see all the vines are starting to come up and over. It's looking amazing. And the interesting thing about this, and the outside of the house, is it reads white. This house is actually a gray brown, which is incredible. So when we painted it, when we did our sampling, we ended up finding that the way the sun hits this, the California sun, if we put a white, and you see that a lot in houses, the whites when they hit the sun become a little bit too blue white. So in this case, this is actually, I'll show you the color on the inside. It's the actual same color, you wouldn't believe me, but it's the same color as this. So this in here looks like a brown gray, and then outside it looks like it's white. So when you hit the sun, and it gives us a richness to it all. Come in here, he has an attached bathroom, and then we have a Jack and Jill, he can use this for sleepovers. The original intention was to have both boys kind of share a bathroom, and then we realized that we'd be punishing ourselves for that. So our other younger son has a bedroom on the other side. We really did this with a wild card, and you could set this up a whole different ways. You could make this a homework room, you can make it another office, etc. So there's a lot of flexibility. Some cool pieces to highlight in here. Certainly, as always, the art. This is one of my favorite pieces that we make. This cabinet is actually, it's got a plaster concrete base to it with a ton of imperfections. That's always a theme with me. I want to make sure we're making it and it feels real. But this one looks great. All the art looks spectacular in here, but a really cute little room. He's kind of coming to that point at 14 where it's not as applicable. And this is our second floor office. So my wife primarily uses this. Originally, the idea of this was set up, and it has a lot of flexibility to be like a homework room. We found the kids are best on their own, so they kind of do their homework in each room. And Catherine now uses this for her day-to-day. We built in the desk, spent a lot of time. It doesn't seem like much, but this cabinet, we had this corner here. So we wanted to add a cabinet, but we also wanted to really make sure it had a texture and color to it. So we did this curvature on here, and that actually, when you open them up, has a nice little kind of detail to it. Again, carrying through the art, we've designed probably 60, I think there's 62 pieces of art that we designed and manufactured for this place. And again, you can see the lighting story right throughout, where the lighting really integrates with the rest of the house. This is my 11-year-old son's bedroom, and this is our Chase bed, aptly named after Chase. We designed this bed about 6 years ago, and it's been one of our best sellers. It's a great look, and now it's the subtleties that make it really come together. So when you're manufacturing or making a bed or any type of furniture, you start usually with a wood frame or a frame of some substrate. So we have a wood frame, but the wood frame is way back down in here, and then we really build it out with different layers of foam and dacrons and fillers to give it this really great curvature, and then spend a lot of time with the stitch. But you can see how this kind of comes out. We'll frame that within, so it's not looking like a piece that was just quickly framed together. We spend a lot of time with the little details of it. And the thickness too. We do a thinner version, but this one I think is 8 inches. It looks really good, and it also really handles the size of the room too. It makes it feel full and warm. He has a little built-in closet, and then he has a Juliet balcony right here. So all the rooms have these big sliding doors, and that goes for the main floor and the top. And then his bathroom, this is one of the few bathrooms where we diverged a little bit from our typical tile, and just we wanted to have something that integrated. Here we went with a full white oak application on the walls, and we thought the black tile actually worked really, really well with it. So it's a cute little bedroom for him. We're gonna get a peek of the outside. Before we do that, just highlighting some of the furniture pieces and what we really do as Muskoka Living. A lot of this product is in stock in Los Angeles, in stock in Canada, in our Muskoka location. It's all, for the most part, 90% of it's manufactured in our LA facility. Some of the stone, etc., we'll bring those in. But although we do have a full custom capability, and we work with a lot of trade, we work with a lot of end user clients for a lot of projects like this, our specialty really is home furnishing packages, right down to the rugs, the lighting, everything. So you can check all that out, but in addition to these residential projects, we also do a lot of commercial as well. All right, so now let me get you outside. As we come out here, and this is part of the whole house, and this is the beauty of living in Los Angeles. I keep talking about that, but being a Toronto guy, having the ability to have these big doors open on every level, I take advantage of it wherever we can on build projects. So in every room here, we have these big sliders. These are 13 feet high. When we're living here, they're almost always open. We're in September and it's 80 degrees, so we got to take advantage of that. When we did the landscape here, I talked a little bit out front, although I'm beyond obsessed with West Coast landscape architecture, certainly from that Santa Barbara, pea stone, olive trees, citrus. That's what I love, but I come from the East Coast and I still love the framing of boxwoods and hedging and that. So I really married the two here together. So you can see where the decks are. These have all been, and rather than a traditional boxwood, we used a smoky. These have come out really, really nice, and it gives it that framing, and it works really well against that soft olive tree look. look. You can see these guys around the pool. We're just waiting for them to get a little bit bigger before we hedge them up. They've been about 2 years. So originally we just left the pool open and we found it needed some framing. The olive trees they're all about 5 years planted. So I'm not sure where they are in their whole growth trajectory, but we're now starting to create this canopy, and that's our real goal. The house really connects well with, in California, an accessory dwelling unit, ADU. We use it really as a guest house. We built 800 square feet here. We didn't know if we needed it as a guest house. So this could be a guest house, it could be a gym, it could be a studio, an office, what have you. But ultimately it's a cool 800 square feet that has a ton of flexibility. It's joined to the house and it's really connected to the pool. So it becomes a whole bunch of spots. This is really, my sons will have their buddies over and they can hang out here and play video games and go in the pool. We've been doing this for a long time now, and I started this all in an area hence the name Muskoka, which is coastal lake, and we did a lot of these big cottages, great cottages, and we still do, but we did boathouses. So boathouses in Muskoka were allowed 650 square feet of living space above where the boats go. They're some of the coolest buildings around, and you can see them on our Instagram. But this, I really approached it like a boathouse, and I've done a lot of these. So how do we maximize 650 square feet and make it really, really cool? The first thing was kind of getting the beauty of the ceiling. So really we traced the framing detail. So rather than any collar ties, we used a ridge beam that takes the support, and we were able to show all the details. So up here where we have a shed dormer, you can see that shed dormer kind of going into the architecture of the interior. So that's all shown, and it gives it that old kind of cabin feel, a really updated cabin feel. And I love that feeling. I love these small, intimate spaces. I'd be happy to live in this size. This whole bar unit was done out of plaster in the shop. This is one of our most popular sofas. Because our furniture really originates from these second homes, comfort is everything. So it's one thing for it to look great. It's another thing for it to last a long time, but I really want people to sit in and be comfortable and live a casual life. It used to be that your second home was where you could have some fun and it was casual, and your home in the big city was formal and it was very defined and cut. I think people are understanding that when they went to the cottage, it was such a wonderful feeling, or their cabin or their place in the Hamptons or wherever it was. And they realize, why can't you have that at home? And you've seen this whole kind of switch where people are embracing living comfortably. You can still have something that looks great and have a lot of detail into it, but it doesn't have to feel too suffocatingly formal. So although this is a full-time home right in the middle of Los Angeles, it feels like it could be right at home in the Hamptons or in the beach in Malibu. It has that real like soft inspiration to it. We've really leaned into some of our cooler case goods in here. This is one of my favorites. Incredibly difficult to make. This is white oak. You can see the curvature. This is solid on this part, so there's actually a whole bunch of different pieces to make this turn. At first glance, you look at these pieces, and even being around it all day, I'm always amazed when they came out. But this one's spectacular. Even the nightstands with the slight curvature, these were not imported pieces. These were made in our Los Angeles facility, right down to these subtle little bullnose and the wire brush around it, but they really, really do look great. This is one of my favorite beds. On this one, we actually have travertine balls on the legs. So there's a couple of cool things happening. We have this plaster application on the finish, this really nice, it's almost like a velvet, but it's done out of cotton. So you can see there's a lot of different coloration. So it gives it an organic feeling rather than a fancy velvet that's too perfect. And then we use textured fabric here to kind of really bring it together. And then this has a great little view right out to the pool. Outdoor furniture, all in stock and available in Los Angeles and Port Carling and everywhere available for shipping. I love teak. And we do a lot of teak, but really I think everyone who's seen or used teak, it is high maintenance. So this is absolutely 100% outdoor aluminum wrapped out wicker that we design and bring in. This you can leave in and not worry about it. Teak, although we do sell a lot and it's great, you do have that kind of fading that you go through, and you have a little bit more work. You're going to have some of the color bleeding. So this is one of our better collections. This is coming next year in a swivel. We do this also in a sectional, and then the aluminum works really, really well too, just for a low maintenance application. We had an existing pool that we tore out and put this one in. So it's a great size with a spa and the two Baja shelves. These Baja shelves are great. They can hold umbrellas. The reality reality is we draw these in a lot of times. People don't really use them. So as we're approaching new pools, we're starting to minimize the use of them and either make the pool a little narrower and or kind of adding a stair complex. But we're starting to really put our brains to how we reimagine. Like I said, the Bajas look great. I don't feel they get used, and maybe that's just in our household. Really fortunate here to have a lot of square footage in terms of land. We're around 19,000 square feet. So even with a big pool, we have a great piece of grass here for the kids to play catch and myself. We actually started with turf out here, and what happened was it just didn't feel authentic enough. It was great. It looked, it was easy, but it didn't have that right feel. And we tried to get a turf that had some dead grass in it, everything. So we went back with real grass, and it just has that feeling that you can't duplicate. You get a view of how we approach the landscape here. The whole perimeter, again, in the beauty of West Coast is being able to use the ficus hedging. In Canada, it's much more difficult to actually find a good hedge. You're using different materials for hedging, but it's not as great as a ficus hedge. So I love those. And then really what I did is I used the ficus hedge as the fence, and then we built on top of it. So we have a lot of olive trees. These are actually a laurel that comes out, and we kind of shape them in. So it's a really nice little detail. There's citrus trees that are all about to bloom, probably into early October, and then again a lot of olives. These are younger olives, so check back in 5 to 10 years, and these will have a nice canopy over the grass and over the pool. They are there's a difference in olives. Some shed the olives, some don't. These ones don't. But even with that, it can be a little messy around the pool. I'm okay with it because I love the look so much. So far, it's been okay. These are all going to get cut down probably in about 6 months. I just need them to come a little higher, and then they'll get taken right off the top. Covered pergola. Again, we went with all woods in here, and you can see the V-groove and the cracking. It really has a feeling of a cabin, and it's authentic, and it's warm. So I want people to have dinner here and feel like they're in a place it's been here for a minute, and it's been crafted by hand, and it doesn't feel too precious that you can't use it and have a good time. Thank you, Luxury Home Show, for doing a tour of our Brentwood Park project. If you have any more questions, our information's below. Muskoka Living Interiors on Instagram or on our website. And to the audience, thanks very much for coming along for a little viewing of our house, of our project, of our passion. And if you like this project, you'll certainly like what's coming up next.
Hello, Luxury Home Show. My name is Thomas Schneider, along with Michael Kovac. We are the architects of this project. I can't wait to take you inside and show you. It's very important that every space has its own exterior space as well, including the bedrooms upstairs. I mean, you're really transported here.